Tecovas is the go-to for premium, handcrafted Western boots. Stop by any store location for a warm welcome, a cold drink in hand, and a truly one-of-a-kind shopping experience. Let our friendly staff help you find your new go-to boots, whether your first pair or your 50th. Finish things off with a complimentary boot brand to make them extra special. Come for the boots, stay for the good times. Tecovas, forever West.
Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 312. I'm so excited that you are here. We're going to be talking all about the end of one school year, the beginning of another. This is a weird time in the life of homeschoolers, April, May, because we're finishing up what we've been doing all along, and we also simultaneously kind of need to think about what's happening next year. And that can be really challenging, especially when you're just ready for it to be over. So let's talk about it today. Before we begin, I want to thank CTC Math for continuing to sponsor the podcast. We're so grateful to their support. You can learn more about them later on in this episode, or just check them out at ctcmath.com, or go to the show notes for this episode at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast for a link to a great discount on CTC Math for your family. All right, pop those earbuds in and let's get on with today's episode. Hey there, welcome back. Today we are talking all about how to get yourself set up for success as you're ending one school year and getting ready to start thinking about the next school year. One of my biggest frustrations forever in homeschooling my kids was always that at this time of year, we're talking April, May, June, I'm wrapping up and I just want to stop thinking about things. I want to take a break. I want to relax. I don't want to be thinking about next year, but our co-ops are starting to plan classes, so I have to organize the idea for the class that I have to teach, or my kids are starting to think about fall activities, so I need to see how it works within our schedule. And then homeschool conferences and conventions are taking place, and so purchasing curriculum is at its peak time. And I always get frustrated because I'm like, I just want to wait. I just want to break before thinking about next year. But it really is true that this is the time of year that we need to start to think about what's happening in the coming years and what things we're going to improve on, what we're going to change, what we're going to keep, and all of that as we keep moving forward. So today we're going to talk about curriculum really in general, but we're also going to talk about how to build your own confidence and focus on the new beginning that a new homeschool year can bring to you. And I'm saying that as somebody who loosely homeschools year round. So we do have a start day. It's usually a few days after our public school area. The public schools in our area go back to school, and we celebrate like a not back to school day as like a fun tradition to celebrate the fact that they're all getting on the bus and going back to school, and we are going out for donuts and having a fun day. And then we get back into our regular routine. That's when we add in all the different subjects, and it's usually close to the time when co-ops or other fall activities start. But we tend to keep doing some things year round: journaling, math. My kids are constantly reading. Sometimes we work on projects during this time, and all of it feeds into and fits within our homeschool kind of cadence and year. So if you're listening to this episode in real time, it's April. And in the homeschool world, that means conventions are popping up around the country. Usually I'd be going to speak at them. I'm hoping to get back in the game and speak at a bunch of conferences and conventions next year. So if you're listening to this and there is a conference or a convention in your area that you would like me to come to and speak at, I would really encourage you to reach out to the organizers of that convention or that conference or the organization that holds it and ask them either how they choose conference speakers and convention speakers or keynote speakers, encourage them to reach out to me, or let them know that there's somebody that you'd like to have speak at your conference or your convention. For years and years, I spoke with the same convention group, so I was always in the kind of same area. But I've done a few state conferences and conventions here and there and have found that I really love reaching out and meeting people at the state level in different areas and getting to know new groups of people. So totally open and really excited about putting myself out there and trying to get to speak at some more of the state conventions in 2027. And I know they do a lot of their planning in summer and fall of the previous year. So feel free to reach out to me or reach out to your organizers and to try to set that up. I would love to hear from them. So as that is happening, your inbox is probably full of, this is the best program for your child. This is what you should check out. Or we've got this sale going on at this time. And I'm no different. I have a sale running right now as you're listening to this episode for Curiosity Post. It's 20% off a subscription. So you could subscribe for a month and try it out at 20% off the lowest rate. Or if you think that your kids would like getting mail every single month from me related to a social, emotional, executive function skill topic that challenges them to play games, get hands-on, write letters to each other, and journal, then you might want to subscribe for a quarter or a month a quarter or a year and get that 20% off the bigger subscription. We've had a few people take advantage of that already. And I'm super excited to say we're sending out 60 subscriptions next month. And if you get your subscription in before the mailings go out on the 20th, you will also get this month's. And then if not, you'll just get the next month's. So you don't miss anything. You don't miss out on any subscriptions. You just get the next however many, 12 if you do an annual subscription, or 3 if you do a quarterly subscription. Really excited about it. And the kids that have received their Curiosity Post in the mail have loved it. And I've gotten some really sweet letters back. So I'd love to have you join the 60 people that we have currently, the 60 families we currently have subscribing, just to see that continue to grow and let kids enjoy getting positive mail in their mailbox with something fun that they can do. It's hard, though, to navigate all of the different things that are available out there for homeschooling. I love that we have so many options, but I also nostalgically remember when our options were a little bit more limited. When I first started homeschooling 16 years ago, there were a few conferences and conventions, and we went to a couple, but they were mostly showcasing the big curriculum companies that were out there. And there weren't as many small businesses, small curriculum providers, or other resources available. And even the social opportunities or the connection opportunities online, things like the Learners Lab didn't exist back then. We didn't have as many opportunities to get to know other homeschoolers through the beauty and wonder of the internet and chat rooms and Instagram groups and communities and Facebook communities and communities off of social media like the Learners Lab. We had public libraries. The rule of thumb, if you wanted to meet other homeschoolers and get to know other people who were doing this with you, if you didn't belong to a co-op or you didn't know anybody else who homeschooled, it was to go to the public library sometime during the day, during a school day, and approach, if you were brave enough, another family who had school-age children and were there during the day, because chances were likely that family was also a homeschooling family. So things have come a long way. When things come so far, we can start to feel inadequate or overwhelmed. We might start thinking, am I doing enough? Or even, I'm not sure I can do this again. I'm burning myself out. And one of the big reasons for those feelings of inadequacy and burnout are because there's so much available. It's not as clear cut as it once was. You either made your own thing or you picked one of the boxes of curriculum and you just went with it. There's so many different things out there available, but there's also so many different messages that are all over the internet. So we're going to talk today about how to reflect on your year without completely second guessing yourself, because I guarantee you're doing a lot better than you think you are, and certainly more than you're giving yourself credit for. Also, I'm going to talk about how to think about curriculum in a way that actually serves your family and what to look for, especially if you're homeschooling a neurodivergent child. Most importantly, I want to talk to you about how to trust yourself as you move into a new year, even if you're brand new to homeschooling, and even if you've been doing this a long time like me, because every kid is different and every year is different, and there's lots of second guessing that goes on all the time. I want you to hear this right from the start. You already have more wisdom than any curriculum you could buy. You already know what works for your child, what doesn't. You have a gut feeling of how you want your homeschool to look. And that gut feeling is right. It is true. It is just, and it is beautiful. And we're going to talk about trusting ourselves. Okay, so let's just think about how interesting the months of April and May really are in the homeschooling world. It's an overlap of endings and beginnings, right? You're finishing books, you're finishing programs, you're pushing through those last math lessons before you go on to a new level. You're trying to decide if you can call it done or if you just have to keep going a little bit longer. But at the same time, you're being pulled into the future. You're thinking about, what should we do next year? Should we switch things up? Do we need something new? And I want to remind you that this is not the time to panic decide. It's the time to pause and reflect. And before you pick anything new, really think about what has happened in your homeschool, what's working, what's not working, and what might need like an injection of newness to it. So let's make this really simple. We don't want to overthink. We want to make sure that as we're thinking about our past year and our new year, we are not complicating it or making it overwhelming. We're just being honest with ourselves. So instead of asking, did we do enough? That's a loaded question that you're always going to find yourself falling short on. So just wipe it from your reflection question arsenal. Instead of that, ask yourself, what worked? What didn't work? What felt good in our homeschool days? What caused stress over and over again? And I want you to think about this, especially through the lens of your child. When were they engaged? When were they motivated to get things done? When were they like loath to stop working? When did they resist? When did those heels dig in? When did they fight you on different things? When did they come alive? Were there certain projects or subjects or activities that you did that just really lit them up? Because those moments, as you think about them, those are your roadmap for what is working, what is going well, and what you need to keep working on as you move forward in your homeschooling. Those things are your roadmap for planning the future. It's not the curriculum catalog. It's not the convention speaker lineup, even though I've been on many convention speaker lineups. Your lived experience over the last year is by far your best data, better than anything else you can pick up anywhere, even from a podcast like this. Make sure that anything you are listening to, learning from, or doing is always through the lens, is always being viewed through the lens of your own experiences and your child. Because what's true for me isn't necessarily true for you. And what's true for your next door neighbor is certainly not always true for you. We need to know our kids and ourselves better than anyone else and trust that really is our roadmap to follow. Sometimes we look back and we only see what didn't get finished or what we didn't get to. But unfinished curriculum or projects or programs don't equal failure. It just might mean that it wasn't a good fit, or it moved too fast, or it moved too slowly. Maybe it didn't match your child's learning style or interests. Maybe it didn't fit your real life. That's not failure, that's information. Maybe you had a whole bunch of things that you weren't expecting to have happen during this year. That's going to affect your productivity. It's going to affect what has gotten done and what hasn't. And it doesn't mean that the whole year needs to be chalked up as a failure and forgotten about. It just means you need to regroup a little bit. You might need to start back at the beginning of some things, or like we've done in the past, accelerate. So you're doing double the math assignments in a day so that you can get done with what you're finishing up much more quickly, so you don't have to stay behind in a subject. Or it might mean you do one of the subjects a little bit throughout the summer to get ahead. It doesn't it doesn't make a difference because nobody is telling you how and what you need to finish when you need to finish it. Remember, you're the administrator of your own homeschool and you get to make some of those decisions for yourself. There have been years where we've abandoned math completely for chunks and chunks of time. And then there have been years where we have done double or triple the math in a given year. One year, actually 2 years in a row, my youngest, who was very math motivated, finished 4 curricular or grade level years of math in just under 2 school years. That wasn't because I was pushing him. It was because he was motivated and he thought it was cool. He had access to all of the different grade levels in his CTC math that he uses. And so he just kept doing it and doing it. The next year, he barely did any. He totally reached that, 11-year-old, 12-year-old slump where they're pushing back at you and fighting everything. And so he didn't do that many lessons per week. It was a fight. And we did other things. He didn't realize he was doing math in other ways. He was, but he was not doing his curriculum as much or as often as he had been doing it. So he's no longer 3 years ahead or 2 years ahead, but he's still a little bit ahead. And he's now back to doing a couple lessons a day instead of just one lesson a day, or one lesson every couple of days, or multiple lessons in a day like he had been a few years ago. You get to adjust, because here's the thing. Curriculum is that big word we all focus on this time of year. What curriculum are we going to get? What curriculum do our kids need? What's going to be the best fit curriculum? I have so many people asking me over and over again, what is the best curriculum for gifted students? Or what is the best curriculum for neurodivergent kids or kids who have special needs? And I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm probably going to tick a bunch of people off, especially like curriculum companies and maybe some friends who have developed curriculum. If anybody is telling you that their curriculum or their program is perfect for your neurodivergent kid or your gifted kid or your autistic kid or your child with sensory processing disorder or dyslexia or whatever, turn around and walk the other way. There is no perfect curriculum for any one child. There just isn't. Do I love some of the curriculums I use? Absolutely. I talk to you guys about CTC Math on this program all the time. I will die on the hill that CTC Math has been the best thing we ever did for our homeschool because of the reasons I have said to you before. It fits our family. It teaches them in small bite-sized chunks, and my kids learn better in small bite-sized chunks. It allows them to accelerate or slow down as they need it, so it can be adapted to multiple different learning styles and learning abilities. So you need to remember that just because a curriculum works really well for somebody else may or may not work for you, and it doesn't mean it works for all kids who are just like your kid. That said, it's really good information to gather as you're thinking about what could potentially work for you. But I will tell you right now, anybody who is telling you that their curriculum is exactly what you need for your gifted student or your autistic student, you need to ask them, how do you know my autistic child? What specific characteristics of a gifted child does your curriculum provide for? Because maybe they'd have an answer for it, but they probably can't answer with specifics to your child. And that, my friends, is who you are an absolute, complete, and total expert on. Curriculum is a tool. That is all it is. Every single curriculum out there is a tool for you to use in the way that meets your family's needs the best. CTC Math is a tool we use to meet my family's needs because I have varying degrees of mathematic ability in my home. Some are very good at math and some aren't very good at math. And that particular program allows me the flexibility to adapt it on a kid-to-kid basis while still just paying one price for multiple levels. There have been other programs we've used in ways that they were or weren't meant for. We used a history curriculum a few years ago. And again, I've said this before on this podcast episode or on this podcast, I'm not going to share this particular curriculum because it is not one I would recommend because of a lot of the gaps that we found in it. It was one we tried and we had the books for, and I didn't want to waste the money. So I used it as a tool to show my kid who was using this program at the time how to be a critical thinker and to recognize when there were slants or perspective issues or gaps in things that they were reading. And so we adjusted that curriculum and didn't use it as it was directed. We chose not to use the curriculum as a director of our homeschool day. Instead, we used it as a tool within our homeschool day. On Mondays and Tuesdays, I had my child read a unit from the textbook that I wasn't a huge fan of, but had some good information in it with lots and lots of gaps and a very specific perspective. And then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I had my child, who was studying history at that time, watch a queued up list of YouTube videos and Curiosity Stream videos and read from certain websites and online textbook chapters about the same topics that those units were covering. And then on Fridays, my kid and I met for a cup of coffee or hot chocolate, and we talked about that unit for the week. So we adjusted the curriculum to teach a variety of different lessons. That child learned more history in that year than any of my other kids have ever learned before or since. And it's a strategy I'm thinking about bringing back for the current 2 that I still have at home because it was very powerful. That child is also a really good critical thinker. That kid has cultivated a social media algorithm that is very balanced because they look at lots and lots of videos that come from both sides of the intellectual, political, socioeconomic, and et cetera, positions that are out there. So every type of event that comes across that person's feed, that child's feed, is very balanced. And so it's been interesting how you can use something to your own ends and still be okay with it being a very slanted or gappy curriculum. When we approach curriculum as a tool and not the director of our homeschool, and remember that it's not in charge of our homeschool, that we are and our kids are and our family is, it gets easier and easier to make better decisions as we move forward in the picking and the choosing of how we're going to organize our homeschool and our years when we go forward. But it's really easy. It's really easy, especially this time of year, to flip around to the curriculum being our guide or being a slave to the curriculum without even realizing it. Because we start to ask ourselves, what does this curriculum require of us? Or what curriculum would be best for the family that I have right now? Instead of saying, what do we need and how could this help us get what we need? And there's a truth that I want to say that not everyone remembers in the moment. And honestly, it's the truth that curriculum companies aren't going to tell you. And also, people out there on the internet and on social media who are sponsored by curriculum companies may not tell you this either, because they want to make sure that they're still getting brand deals and sponsorships. And hey, I'm somebody who gets sponsorships. I have social media, I have a platform, I have a podcast. This podcast is sponsored by CTC Math. But anything that I send out in an email, sponsorship wise, or anybody that I take on as a sponsor to the podcast, are people that they're companies that I trust and that I would tell you if you had a one-on-one call with me, if I thought that particular curriculum would be a benefit to your family or not, and what other curriculum would be. Because while I use CTC Math, and I have used Night Zookeeper for writing before, and I've used Reading Eggs with all of my kids when they were learning to read, and all of those have been sponsors before. I've paid for my own subscriptions to those things, and I paid for my own curriculum that I use with my kids, so that with integrity, I can tell you what we've used, and I can tell you what I think about particular sponsors, because I want you to know, and I want you to remember that the best curriculum for you and for your family is the curriculum that you're going to use. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The absolute best curriculum for your homeschool is the curriculum that you will use. Your curriculum does you no good if it stays shrink wrapped on a shelf. It does you no good if when you open it up, you feel overwhelmed and like you just can't do the lesson today because there's so much involved.
Okay, so let's talk about math.
Specifically, let's talk about finding a program that actually works for your unique homeschoolers. In our house, we've been using CTC Math for years, and even though I am so appreciative that they sponsor this podcast, I am a paying customer. I'm still a paying customer even with their sponsorship because it's just that good, and I love supporting great companies with great programs. With 2 kids still at home, both with very different learning needs, CTC Math has been the flexible and dependable solution that I keep coming back to. One of my kiddos needs more time to process math concepts, and I love that she can move through the lessons at her own pace without feeling rushed or behind. My other kiddo, he flies. He jumps straight to the end of unit tests to see what he already knows, and then we only focus on the lessons that fill the gaps. That kind of customization is gold when you're homeschooling gifted or twice exceptional kids. CTC Math gives you the access to every grade level from kindergarten through 12th grade with your subscription so that your child can accelerate, review, or jump around based on their own needs, not based on some rigid curriculum structure. And because it's video-based with clear instruction and auto-graded lessons and quizzes, it frees me up to support my kids without being chained to a textbook, teacher's manual, or whiteboard. So whether your child needs more time or is racing ahead, you can tailor it all with CTC Math. Check it out at ctcmath.com. You will see why so many homeschool families trust it. And if you've got quirky math learners like I do, I think you're going to love it. If you have any questions about CTC, like I said, we've been using it for years in our homeschool, and I encourage you to reach out and ask me any questions that you have. If you do pop over there, let them know that I sent you, and let them know that you appreciate their ongoing support of homeschoolers everywhere, especially those of you here at Raising Lifelong Learners. All right, let's get back to today's episode. Or if you open it up and you see it needs all sorts of extra things in order to make the lesson happen, and you just don't have red and blue food coloring that day, and now you can't do the lesson or you can't skip ahead. Like, it does you no good if it's not something that you can actually use. And the layout doesn't matter. The curriculum with the prettiest layout is not necessarily the one you're going to use. It might be more enticing to you, especially if you're also, like your kids, neurodivergent, and maybe you have a touch of ADHD and you need the novelty of pretty pictures. But it might not be either. It might not be the one that everybody on Instagram is talking about. It might not be the one, it probably isn't, the one that promises to fix everything. It's the one you'll use, because even the most curriculum is not going to work if it's too complicated to keep up with, if it drains your energy, if it doesn't fit your daily rhythm, or if it overwhelms your child. It needs to be something that is user-friendly enough, substantial enough, adaptable enough that you're going to be able to use it with the kids you have in front of you. This is especially true for families who have neurodivergent kids. You need something that's adaptable, which again is why I will sing CTC Math's praises. CTC Math, full disclosure, I've told you this before, sponsors this podcast, but they don't provide my curriculum for free. I ask them not to, because sponsorships will always give you samples of whatever it is they want you to talk about so you know about it. I was a customer of CTC Math for 3 years before they started sponsoring this podcast, and have continued to pay my family's subscription every single year, even though they pay to sponsor the podcast, because it's what we use and what we like, and I don't mind paying for curriculum that works for my family. I've purchased other curriculum. There are a couple things I'm looking at for next year. I don't have definitive answers on what we're going to do next year either, so I don't have a lot to talk about there. I do, my daughter, my 16-year-old, started using Mia Academy this year because she wanted a little bit more direction. She wanted to be able to open the computer, open the lesson, and do the lesson, because she was starting to feel overwhelmed with all of the different things that she was involved in extracurricularly. And so she just wanted something open and go, but also wanted to be able to do it on her own and at her own pace. So we tried a couple different online programs, some that we've tried in the past, and they just didn't work for her right now. And then that was a new one to us. So we tried it and she's enjoying it. So she may continue that one next year. We're still evaluating. But again, I've paid for that subscription because it's something that she wanted to try out. You are the person in your homeschool who matters the most when it comes to curriculum. Yes, it matters that our kids are going to use the curriculum that we purchase. But depending on your kid's age, especially when they're younger, you are the most important component to that because you have to direct it. You have to facilitate it, and you have to make sure that it's working correctly in the way that your kids need it to. So it has to be something that you're going to use. It can't be something that exhausts you, confuses you, or makes you dread your day, because that's not sustainable. And sustainability matters. A calm and confident parent is the foundation for a thriving homeschool. And if you're not calm because you're dreading what's coming up, if you're not confident in what you're doing or what you're facilitating, it's just not going to happen. And here's the thing that nobody really thinks about, but I think is so important. You, mom, dad, whomever is homeschooling the children, you're going to be in your homeschool longer than any of them. Let that sink in for a second. The person who's going to be in your homeschool the longest is you, because you're going to be graduating kids. I started homeschooling 16 years ago. I have 2 graduates. I have 2 kids still homeschooling. I have a long way to go in my homeschooling career. When all is said and done, Isaac is 7th grade this year. So 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 5 more years minimum, because he may end up with a super senior year. We may end up having an extra year, like a gap year of extra homeschooling and taking some dual credit classes. We've talked about doing that too. So let's just say 6 years. It's probably going to be 5, but it could be as many as 6. If I say I have 6 more years of homeschooling, and I've been homeschooling for 16 years already, that means when all is said and done, I am going to be homeschooling for, 22 years? 22 years. None of my kids homeschooled for 22 years. It has to be sustainable for me. I have to be the one that can get up every day, make sure the lessons are happening, even if I'm not direct teaching anymore, even if I'm just facilitating the programs and the activities and the classes that the kids are taking. I'm still the main component, and I will be longer than any of my other children. And so you are the foundation of your homeschool and need to make it something that you're going to be able to thrive in. So let's talk specifically, though, briefly about choosing curriculum for neurodivergent kids, because this is where it can get especially tricky. A lot of curriculum is not designed with your kids in mind. And so we need to filter differently. Neurodivergent kids, no matter how their brains are wired, whether they are wired as gifted kids, twice exceptional kids, kids who are autistic, have sensory processing challenges, have some different anxiety or OCD challenges, are dyslexic, dysgraphic, or struggle with dyscalculia. Each one is different from one another, and there is no out-of-the-box curriculum that is going to meet the needs of those very asynchronous individuals. And so you're going to need to pick and choose to some degree, which is why I say any curriculum provider that tells you this is the perfect gifted curriculum, or this is the perfect curriculum for your autistic child, or this is the perfect curriculum for your child who is dyslexic, is not telling you the truth, because there is no perfect curriculum. There are really good research-based strategies for each of these types of kids. And a curriculum could have been created based on those strategies, but that those strategies aren't going to work across the board for every child with that diagnosis, and they're not going to work across the board for every grade level, every age, and every subject. And so we want to look at it with a different lens. We want to look at it through the lens first of flexibility. Can you adapt it? Can you skip lessons for your kids who are getting things more quickly? Can you slow things down for kids who are struggling to get it? Can you speed it up? Can you change the format? If it only works one way, it's probably not going to work for your child. One of the strategies that I used a lot when I was working in the school system as a gifted specialist, and I worked with teachers on helping them adapt their curriculum in the classroom for their gifted kids, is a strategy called the most difficult problems first. And so let's just use math again as an example. I would sit down with the teacher and look at the math unit, and he and I would determine which subset of problems, practice problems, and usually a minimal amount, like 5, maybe 10 if it was a more complicated topic, but usually 5. We would circle the 5 most difficult problems. And we would really make sure that they were the most difficult problems that demonstrated understanding of that particular topic. And we would give those problems to our mutual students first, with the understanding that if our kids, especially our gifted kids, could successfully complete the 5 to 10 most difficult problems in a given unit or topic with 100% accuracy, they didn't need the additional practice. So they could move on to the next lesson, or they could move on to something that challenged them more deeply in the area of mathematics. So we could focus on depth rather than breadth. We could have them go deeper into different topics, or some problem solving activities, or reverse engineering a game or something like that. And then the understanding that came with that is if they missed one, then it just showed that they needed a little more practice. So then they'd complete like the next 10 most difficult or the entire lesson. And we talked with the kids about that first. So if the program you're looking at doesn't allow the flexibility of adaptability, either up or down, or skip ahead or slow it down for your kids, then it's probably not going to fit for you, especially if it only works in one direction, in one way. We want to make sure that we're filtering it through the lens of open and go versus adaptable, because open and go sounds amazing. It sounds absolutely amazing. I used to envy, I have a really good friend who has 4 children also, around the same age as my kids, except that I have the one outlier. Her 4 are around the same age as my younger 3, because my oldest was about 6 years older than the next one. And I was so envious in our early years of homeschooling together, because she had one open and go curriculum that she used for all of her kids at their various level. And they knew exactly what they were doing 5 days a week. And they checked their boxes and they did their assignments. And I could never find anything that worked for my children in the same way. But it does sound amazing. It sounds great to be able to know exactly what you're doing the next day and how you're going to do it. But for many neurodivergent kids, including mine, it can start to feel rigid. It can start to feel overwhelming, and it just doesn't fit or feel good. So we're looking for something that's structured so we can keep it going on a day-to-day basis, but flexible. Something that gives you a framework, but still allows you to follow your child. For example, that history sample that I shared earlier, it really was technically an open and go curriculum, history-wise. You read the chapter, you answered the comprehension questions, you did a couple extra projects, you took a test, you knew what you were doing every single day. It did not fit our family. Now, it didn't fit our family for various reasons, not just the rigidity, though I know if I had kept it as is, my oldest child for sure would have struggled with it, because he was not a read the textbook chapter, answer the questions, write an essay person. He needed way more hands-on at the time. So it wouldn't have worked in that way anyway, but it certainly wouldn't have worked based on my assessment of it. And so we want something that gives us a framework that we can use to adjust to how our child learns best. My child remembered stuff when they down with me and talked about it and applied it to the things going on in the world. So we were able to adjust and use the structure as a format to help us provide that flexibility and adaptability, so we could talk about the concepts and apply them according to current events. And so it was really a good fit because it was adaptable. It wasn't just you can only use this in the open and go way. Another curriculum we used years ago, my older daughter, who is now my oldest, but she's my older daughter, she's very linguistic. She could read. I think she came out of the womb with a book, actually. I'm not quite sure. She was one of those kids that spontaneously just read, and you're like, what'd you do to teach your preschooler to read? And I didn't, and people like would roll their eyes at me. But she truly just, it was like spontaneous combustion. And so literature curriculums, language arts curriculums were really a drag for her. And the structured rigidity of some writing programs were really tough for her too, because she was a natural creative writer. So we adjusted. One of the ways we adjusted was a language arts curriculum we had been using that was very book heavy. It was a literature-based curriculum. I'm pretty sure it was from Beautiful Feet Books. I loved their curriculum. I still love their curriculum. I don't have 2 kids at home who fit that style right now, but Beautiful Feet curriculum, or Beautiful Feet Books, yes. I'll link to them in the show notes for this episode. I'll actually link to all of these companies I'm talking about, but And none of them are sponsored. CTC is sponsored, but I'm not talking about them because they're sponsored. I'm talking about them because it's what we're using. But Beautiful Feet was great because it was very literature heavy. It was like book after book, which she loved. And there were curricular type questions, like comprehension questions, inferential thinking questions, papers to write, and things like that. What I started doing with her for that particular book, remember, provides the structure, but is adaptable to the kid, is I would have her read the comprehension questions before she started reading the book, because I wanted her to understand that sometimes when you're using a curriculum, you're using it to gain certain types of information. When you're reading a book within that curriculum, it's because that book teaches a specific lesson. And I didn't want her to read the book and miss that. And that kind of reading is important as well. When I was in college, I read the syllabi before I started any of my classes. And I knew exactly what I needed to do before I started and completed assignments. It's just like reading the rubric before you start writing. And so I'd have her read the comprehension questions before she read to make sure she was reading to be able to answer those. And it was really a rich experience for both of us. So it was still open and go, but it was adaptable and we could use the structure but be flexible within it. Another lens to use with your neurodivergent kid, the sensory and cognitive overload. Ask yourself, is this visually overwhelming? Is there too much information on a page? Are the directions clear and simple? For kids, especially with ADHD, anxiety, dyslexia, or sensory sensitivities, this often matters more than the content itself. It needs to be bite-sized. It needs to have white space on the page. It needs to be smaller lessons more frequently. And so you want to make sure that the sensory and cognitive load is in line with what your kids need. Engagement is a good filter too. Does it invite curiosity? Gifted kids especially, they do better when they're curious about something, when they're interested in it. If it feels like compliance rather than curiosity, they're going to balk. They're going to be undermotivated. They're going to fight you on it. And so you want them to be curious about what they're learning and interested, because neurodivergent kids especially thrive when they're interested, curious, and emotionally connected to a curriculum. You also want to look for built-in breaks or natural stopping points. Is this a curriculum that you can pause easily and come right back to? Or does it feel like you always have to push through because you're going to be missing something if you don't get to the other side? Flexibility in pacing is just as important as flexibility in the actual cognition and the actual content for neurodivergent kids. So it's important to look at that as well. And then finally, a really important lens to look through is it respectful to the child? This is subtle, but it's powerful. Does the curriculum assume the child is capable? Does it speak respectfully? Are the instructions from an encouraging and respectful and capability forward viewpoint? And then does it encourage thinking? Or does it feel babyish, controlling, overly repetitive? Your kids, especially your intuitive ones, are going to feel that and they're not going to like it. When Logan and I were looking for an online curriculum that she could use this year, I told you we tried a few different ones and she settled on Mia Prep. Or I'm sorry, not Mia Prep, Mia Academy. There was one that I thought was going to be a hit because it had been a hit for us in the past. And she just felt that it talked down to her all the time. And so the content was very similar actually to Mia Academy, but the way the narrator presented the material was in a she felt condescending way. And she just did not want to listen to that. So think about all of those different things as you're looking at the curriculum for your kiddo. And then let's talk just briefly. I know a lot of you listening are probably going to go to a homeschool conference or convention in the next month or so. Oh, I so wish I was seeing you there this year. But if you are in Ohio in August 8th, there is a one-day special needs conference in, I think it's like the Dayton area. And I will be keynoting at that conference with my friend Steve Demi. He is also keynoting. I love Steve. He's got such a unique perspective. He's the founder of Matthew C. and a bunch of other speakers as well. It's a one-day event, super affordable. I will link to it in the show notes for this episode. It's put on by CHIO, Christian Home Educators of Ohio, and it's going to be a great event. So if you live in the area, I would encourage you to come out. That's the only one I'm speaking at this year, though I do have some things coming up online, and I'll let you know about those soon as well. But I'm hoping to be out there again in 2027. So when you're in a convention, a hall and you're faced with all of these choices, right? It's so amazing. It's so wonderful. It's so inspiring. It's so energizing. It's so fun to be around all these other people doing the same thing as you and all of these options that they have for your kids. But they can also be overwhelming. You walk in feeling confident and you walk out with 7 new programs, 3 completely different philosophies, and a lot of doubt. I want you to anchor yourself when you go. You're not shopping for the best curriculum. Remember, you're looking for best fit for your family. And so if you're looking at everything through that lens, it doesn't matter what anybody tells you. It matters what, and you're able to better put it through the filters that we just talked about with your child first. So when you see something shiny, exciting, and new, ask yourself, is this going to work in the real life of my family? Will my child even engage in this? And would I enjoy using this? Because remember, you need to be able to make it work because the best curriculum is the one you use, and you're going to be in your homeschool longer than anyone else. If any of those answers aren't clear yeses, then it's totally okay to walk away. You're not letting anyone down. And don't fall prey to the pressure of this one-time convention special, because curriculums go on sale all the time. And you can find the same curriculum for the same price online or used from a friend or an online marketplace or whatever. You don't have to buy right then. So think about that as you go. It is okay to walk away and think about it a little bit longer. Don't yield to the pressure of being in that inspiring and energizing room. And then I want to just end with this, because this episode's gone on longer than it should have anyway. But I think it matters more than anything else that we've talked about. If you're heading into your new year and you're feeling unsure, especially if this past year was messy, your kiddo struggled, you had to pivot a lot, you might be feeling overwhelmed and you're just not going to be able to do it. When I hear stories like that, what I see isn't someone who was messy or struggled or was a failure for pivoting. I see a parent who adjusted to the needs of their kid. They paid attention to what was going on a day-to-day basis, and they put their kid and the connection and their hearts first. They kept showing up every day. You kept showing up every single day. That's amazing. Give yourself credit for that. And throughout that process, you learned your child. You learned about your kid more deeply than anything else. That's exactly what makes you good at what you're doing. That's exactly what makes you the perfect teacher for that kid. Because there's no other teacher besides you that's going to go to that kind of length to meet that kid, your kid, where they are and move them forward. You are the expert on your child, not the curriculum company, not the convention speaker, not me, not the online reviews, you, because you see all of the daily moments. You notice the subtle shifts. You know what works and what doesn't. And a new beginning doesn't mean starting over. It just means starting wiser, more aware, more confident, and more connected. As you're going into the end of this year, celebrate what worked, release what didn't, and then when you start looking ahead, choose tools that support you and don't control you. You're already building something bigger than a checklist. You're building a life of learning for your child, and you're exactly the right person to do it. I promise you. You absolutely have got this, and I have every faith in the world in you. If this episode resonated with you, and if you want to think more about this, I would really encourage you to think about joining us inside the Learners Lab. This is a personal invitation, because inside the lab, we go deeper into things like this: who your child is, how to connect with them better, what makes them tick, what you can let go of, what you need to pivot on, and supporting not just your kids, but you as the parent, guiding it all. And if you're looking for simple, meaningful ways to connect and start building those skills, like I said earlier, Curiosity Post can do that for you. It's just an envelope in the mail every month, focused on a theme, the same theme that we're doing in the Learners Lab, but with slightly different activities so they can complement each other and not compete. And each one can be used individually or together. We have resources for you. I'm here for you and would love to guide you and support you in your homeschooling journey. Even if you joined for a couple months to pop in and ask questions about curriculums that work, curriculums that don't, strategies that work, strategies that don't. There are other parents who have already walked this line or are walking it with you right now. and we're there for each other. So, personal invitation, come join us in the lab. Join for a month, join for a quarter, join for a year to save the most money, but just join and see if you can find your people. And if we're not it, that's okay too. I'm still here for you. You can still reach out to me anytime through my email address, through the contact form on the show notes for this episode over at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast. I'm so grateful that you're here. And I look forward to talking to you more about what's coming up in your next year and your next year and your next year. I'll tell you right now, I did not go into homeschooling from the get-go expecting to do it from the time my kids were babies. We came into it slightly kicking and screaming 16 years ago, and it is by far the best thing that I ever did for my kids. And I know you can do it too. I've graduated 2. I have 2 more still in the trenches. I'll be in the trenches for another 5 or 6 years with you. And I have every faith that you can do it. And I'm here to support you. All right. We'll be back same time, same place next week with another episode. And if you have any questions, reach out through the contact form over on my website, raisinglifelonglearners.com. Check out the show notes and check out our sponsor, CTC Math. You will not regret it. It is a very adaptable, very affordable curriculum program for homeschool families. You can even sign up for a free trial if you want to. And if you're looking to sign up because the free trial won you over or my conversations won you over, the link over on my show notes takes you directly to a page that gets you 50% off your subscription. So check that out too at raisinglifelonglearners.com/podcast. All right. Have a great week. I'm so proud of you. You are a fantastic parent, an amazing homeschooler. Have a great one. Love on those kids. Bye for now.